Hello and welcome to Transition States, where we talk about AI workflows, the practical systems around them, and how businesses can use these systems. Today's episode is about prompt engineering, why it became so popular, and why not many people are talking about that. So what is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is the practice of writing instructions for an AI model, usually for repetitive works, so that the results are more useful, more reliable, and more consistent. But when you create a prompt for your business, on Monday, that works. On Tuesday, maybe it doesn't. And on Wednesday, someone says that maybe the model got worse. This is not usually the real problem. The real problem is that too many people are building a business habit around a line of text instead of around a system. And that is the trap. For a while, prompt engineering felt like the answer to everything. People found a clever way to ask a model for better results, and suddenly it looked like the magic skill for the AI era. But a good prompt is not a business operation model. It is just part of a larger system. And if you want the current opinion landscape in one sentence, that is this. Some people say prompt engineering is dead, but the more accurate version is that prompt-only systems are dead. Clear instructions still matter. The difference is that these prompts are now expected to live inside the workflow, inside the tool or stack, and a review process instead of carrying the whole business around themselves. Today, I want to talk about why prompt engineering became a thing, why it helped, and why it started to fail as a strategy, and what it turned into as AI got more powerful. And I want to do it in plain English because this is not really a story about prompts. It's a story about how businesses learn to work with a new kind of machine. Prompt engineering didn't appear because people were trying to be trendy. It appeared because early chat models were really useful, but they were also fragile. Some changes in wording could produce very different answers. A better example in the sentence could improve the response. Clearer instructions could make the model less confused. A few short example could guide the format. That means something important. Ordinary people could influence AI behavior without being a machine learning engineer. That was a big deal. Before that, most people thought of AI as something buried inside a lab, a product, or a technical team. Then suddenly, a manager, a marketer, an operator, or a founder could type better instructions and get better results. So prompt engineering started as a workaround. Then it became a skill. Then it became a cultural phrase for how to get AI to behave as we want. And now it is being relabeled by a lot of builders as context engineering, harness design, or instructions design. That doesn't mean the old idea is vanished. It means the center of gravity has moved, and it came from access, uncertainty, and the need for control. The next question is, what engineering actually means? The word engineering matters a lot here. In the real world, engineering is not just about being clever. Engineering is about shaping behavior under constraints. It's about repeatability. It's about failure modes. It's about getting a result that works more than once or more than once a day. That is why I do not think that prompt is the object that needs to be engineered. That's the outcome that needs to be engineered. The outcome includes the behavior of the model, the reliability of the process, and the fit of the workflow, and the kinds of mistakes that you are willing to tolerate. If the result only works when one person remembers a long prompt or copy pastes from somewhere, that is not really a system. That is a trick. But if the results work because of the data, the workflow, the tool access, the review steps, the permissions, and the whole system designed properly, and that is called engineering. That is the difference. Prompt engineering is a piece of work, not the whole work. I do want to give prompt engineering its due because the case for it is real. First, it is cheap to try. You do not need a team, a product rollout, or a big budget to test it. Second, it helps non-technical people to get started. That really matters. If AI only made sense to engineers, a lot of businesses would never try it. Third, it touches clarity. A person who learns to ask better questions often learns to think better about the work itself. It is obviously useful for brainstorming, drafting, rewriting, summarizing, and one-off tasks. These are real uses. And even today, serious builders still defend the practice of AI engineering in a narrow sense. They are not saying a giant prompt is a business strategy. They are saying that clear instructions, good examples, and well-written system prompts still improve quality, still reduces the rework, and saves time when they sit inside a stronger system. In other words, the prompt did not stop mattering. It stopped being the whole answer. Prompt engineering helped a lot of people cross the first bridge from I don't know how this system works to I can actually use this thing. So I'm not here to say it was useless. I'm saying it was a bridge, but unfortunately, some people built the house on the bridge. What is the trap? Here is where the trouble starts. Prompt engineering became a trap when businesses start depending on a hidden text recipe instead of a durable process. It is also why the public backlash got so strong. People got tired of prompt-packed marketing and one-size-fits-all solutions because the real business problems was never how do I say this sentence. The real problem was what is the system is supposed to do? Now, in a classic prompt engineering system, the company has a prompt document. One person knows the good prompt, another person copies it and gets slightly different results. Someone edits that, someone else forgets to use that. And after a while, the model changes, then the output changes. At that point, the business is not really controlling AI. It is improvising around AI. That is the trap. The problem is not that prompts do not help. The problem is that prompts are fragile as the main unit of business design. Prompts do not solve permission problems. They don't solve memory or tool access or approval or human review problems. They do not solve what happens when AI needs to read a document, update the record, or take an action. They are just fixed text recipes. Now let's bring an example. Imagine Maya, an operations manager at a growing company. At first, Maya comes up with a really good prompt to draft client replies. It totally works. She gets faster, the draft sounds better, the team is impressed. So now the business thinks that it has solved AI. But a few weeks later, the process starts to crack. One person changes the prompt, another person pastes that into a wrong context. A third person uses an old version. Now the outcome is inconsistent, and when a busy week hits, people do what they usually are good at. They cut corners. This is where businesses learn the hard lesson. The issue was never only the prompt. The issue was the whole workflow. Who supplies this context? What data is allowed? Who reviews the results? When is AI allowed to act? And what happens if it makes a mistake? That is what a real AI system has to answer. Another reason prompt-only thinking became so unstable is that AI moves fast, really fast. Every week we are seeing a new model or a new tool. A trick can feel like a breakthrough, and then background noise. 1 week the conversation is prompt engineering, the next is context engineering, and then the next week people are talking about agents, skills, MCPs, and harnesses. That doesn't mean all the stack was bad. That means the stack has moved. Do not fall in love with the surface level. Prompt wording changes. System designs last longer. This is why I do not want this episode to become a prompt hack reel. The goal is not to memorize a clever formula that may age out. the next time that a new model comes out. The goal is to understand which layer of the stack you are actually working on. If you understand the layer, you can adapt when the label changes. If you only memorize the label, you will keep chasing the next shiny thing. Now, let us draw a clear line between three ideas. Prompt engineering is the practice of writing instructions that steer the model output. That is useful, as we talked about. This is often the first layer people learn. AI engineering is bigger. It includes the surrounding systems, the data, tools, retrievals, memory, permissions specifically, evaluations, and review. That's the layer a lot of current builders mean when they say prompt engineering is no longer enough. That is where reliability starts to matter. Then there is a phrase I like to use for this series, AI forward engineering. This is my business first way of saying start with the workflow and the outcome, then design the AI around it. That's the whole thing. That is the practical answer to current debates. Prompts still matter, but they don't get to define the whole architecture anymore. In other words, do not ask what is the best prompt. Ask what is the business process? What should AI be allowed to do? What should humans keep? And what tools does the system need? This is modern shift. The prompt is still there. It just stopped being the whole story. Some people now call it context engineering, or some people call it harness design. Some people call it instructions design. The label is less important than the idea. We are moving from clever wording to structured systems. So what people are actually using now, not just the prompts, they are using layered setups. They use prompts, they use context, add tools, add reusable instructions or so-called skills, they add agent behavior, they add review steps, they add logs, and most importantly, they are adding permissions. This is the current practical stack. Not one magic prompt, a stack. This is also why the serious conversations has shifted away from what is the best prompt and toward what does the system needs to know, do, and protect. This is the reason that prompt engineering changed. It got absorbed into a bigger design process. The prompt is still important, but now it is one component inside the system that includes memory, tools, workflow rules, and human oversight. Let us talk briefly about other elements of modern AI engineering and AI forward engineering that these days you are hearing. I just talked briefly about them, and we will have episodes about these concepts, agents, skills, and MCP tools, because they all connect back to prompts. An AI agent is an AI that can take steps toward the goal instead of just replying to you. That means the prompt is no longer the whole interaction. It becomes the starting instruction for a longer chain of actions. A skill is a reusable procedure for a repeated task. That is basically a prompt plus the instructions and guardrails you don't want people rewriting from scratch every time. MCP, or Model Context Protocol, is a structured way a system connects that prompt-driven behavior to tools and data. So the relationship is simple. The prompt tells the model what to do. The skill packages the repeated instructions. The agent carries out multi-step work, and MCP gives the system control access to context and tools. That is why serious conversations have moved beyond prompt wording into system architectures. The prompt is still important, but now it is one component inside a larger machine. What should a business do? Now, start with the workflow, not the prompt, and start with the outcome, not the trick. Decide what AI should be allowed to see. Decide what it should never see. Decide what it can suggest, what it can actually do, where the human must review, how you will monitor and log it, and how you will correct it when it goes wrong. This is a practical path. If the use case is simple, a prompt may be enough. If the use case is repeated, sensitive, team-based, or action-based, you need more than a prompt. You need a system. And that system may include prompts, skills, agents, tools, MCP connections, and many more components that we will talk in this series. But the order matters. Business first, AI second. Let's summarize. Here is the lesson I want people to leave with. Prompt engineering was a useful bridge. It helped people get started. It taught people how to communicate with AI. It gave early users a way to get better results from a new tool. It also taught the industry a useful boundary. Clear instructions matter, but clear instructions are not the same thing as a business system. But like any other technological advancement, it stopped being enough on its own. The real job now is to design AI systems that still can work when the models change, the workflow gets busy, the team grows, and the novelty wears off. This is why the current debates matter. The people who say prompt engineering is dead are usually reacting to hype, sales tricks, or bad product positioning. The people who defend it are usually defending the real value of clarity, structure, and precise instructions. Both sides have a point. The trap is confusing a useful skill with the whole architecture. So yes, learn how to write better prompts, but do not stop there. Ask what the system is, what the business is trying to do, what AI is allowed to see, what it is allowed to change, and how the human stays in the loop. That is the real next step. The prompt engineering was a bridge. AI forward engineering is the road, at least now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.